You know, there was a moment that recently broke the internet. Not because Jimin pulled off some technically insane dance move. Not because his voice split the sky in front of 60,000 people. But because of something far simpler than any of that. In the middle of the Arirang World Tour concert in Tampa, Florida, in front of hundreds of thousands of watchful eyes, ParkJimin paused from his role as a global superstar and put his arm around a security guard standing at the edge of the stage. That was it. One simple gesture. But that clip spread across the entire internet within minutes, and people from all over the world, even those who had never heard the name BTS before, found themselves asking the same question. Who exactly is this man? And if you have that same question, welcome. Because today we are not going to talk about Jimin as a K-pop idol. We are not going to talk about how many Billboard records he has shattered. We are not going to talk about how beautiful his choreography is or how deeply his voice can reach into your chest and pull something out of you. All of that is already well documented. Today we are going to talk about something far deeper than any of that. We are going to talk about why someone who already sits at the very top of the world, whose name is spoken on the most prestigious stages on earth, still manages to be the most genuinely human person in the room. And why the title Idol of Idols that has been given to him is not empty praise, but something he proves every single day. Let us start at the beginning. From the city of Busan, South Korea, ParkJimin was born on October 13, 1995. He was not born into a family of entertainers. He was not someone who was destined for stardom from childhood. He was an ordinary kid who one day discovered his love for art through traditional Korean dance. And from that moment, everything changed. He entered Busan Arts High School and became valedictorian, meaning the student with the highest academic ranking in his graduating class. Then in 2013, he debuted as one of the youngest members of BTS. Nobody could have predicted that this kid from Busan would one day stand before millions of people and make them cry simply by looking at them. But before we go further into who Jimin is as a human being, we need to properly set the stage for that viral moment I mentioned at the top. Because that moment was not an accident. It was not something planned by a marketing team. It was Jimin simply being himself, caught on camera, witnessed by tens of thousands of people, and it made every single person who saw it wonder the same thing. How often does he do this when no one is watching? The answer is, very often. In the world of K-pop, the relationship between an idol and their backup dancers is often very professional and distant. There is an unwritten hierarchy that is very much felt. The idol is the star. The dancers are the support. And that line is usually kept firmly in place. But Jimin has never believed in boundaries like that. There is one moment that became widely known among fans, when Jimin was doing a pre-recording for his song, Like Crazy at Music Bank. One of the dancers in his crew kept making mistakes repeatedly. In a situation like that, many people might feel frustrated, especially under the pressure of live broadcast and millions of watching eyes. But what did Jimin do? He approached that dancer, calmed them down, and even joked warmly that they had just saved some extra time together. Not scolding, not showing disappointment. Instead, he turned what could have been an embarrassing moment into something warm and deeply human. Fans who witnessed it live shared the story on social media, and the reaction was overwhelming. Not because it was surprising coming from Jimin, but precisely because many people realized that this is the standard every person in a position of power should hold themselves to. That when someone makes a mistake, the best response is not punishment or comparison, but understanding and support. And this was not a one-time occurrence. Throughout his entire career, there have been so many moments where Jimin is seen interacting with backup dancers, stage crew, and behind-the-scenes staff with the exact same warmth he shows to fans. In various concert fan cams, you can see Jimin making eye contact with the dancers behind him, smiling at them, and even encouraging them mid-performance. For a casual viewer, those moments might go unnoticed. But for those who know how to watch, that is the real Jimin. Speaking of fans, we cannot skip another moment that went viral in Tampa. On the first night of the concert, a young fan was spotted wearing a custom t-shirt that read, "Jimin, my name is Jimin too." And when Jimin saw the clip of that fan, he did not just laugh about it and move on with his day. He shared the video directly to his own social media with one short, warm comment, "Love you." 2 words. But 2 words sent directly, personally, and genuinely to a fan who probably never imagined that moment would receive a direct response from their idol. You can imagine what that fan felt in that moment. And that is what Jimin always does. He makes the people around him feel truly seen. Now let us talk about something that is often overlooked in conversations about Jimin, which is what he does when the cameras are not rolling. When there is no stage, no spotlight, no millions of eyes watching. Because that is the true measure of a person's character. Since 2016, Jimin quietly covered the cost of uniforms for students at his elementary school in Busan. Not with a press conference. Not with a big announcement. He did it privately, and it only became public knowledge long after the fact. When that school was later announced to be closing, Jimin showed up again. He donated summer and winter uniforms to the final graduating class and gave autographed albums to every single student. Not as promotion, not as a PR strategy, simply because he cared. Then in 2019, Jimin donated 100 million Korean won to the Busan Department of Education to support students from low-income families. And this was only the beginning of a long chain of donations that he continued year after year. For the Jeonnam Future Education Foundation in 2020, for the Gangwon Provincial Office of Education in 2022, for North Chungcheong in 2023, for South Gyeongsang in 2024, for soldiers in need and their families in September 2024, for wildfire victims in Gyeongbuk in March 2025, for the Busan Habitat Challenge that helps elderly residents, and in July 2025, right after being discharged from military service, he donated another 100 million won to the Gyeongbuk Office of Education. These numbers are not just statistics. They are proof that Jimin is not someone who talks about caring only when it benefits him. He is someone who consistently, year after year, uses his position and resources to create real change in the lives of people he will never personally meet. And almost all of these donations were made privately, only becoming public because the recipients chose to express their gratitude openly. If you think that is already enough to prove who Jimin is, wait. Because there is one chapter of his life that truly changed the way many people see him. That chapter is called mandatory military service. In South Korea, every man is required to complete mandatory military service. And for idols and celebrities, this is often seen as a difficult period to get through. As simply as possible, complete the duty, get out, and resume the career. But Jimin, of course, did not do that. In December 2023, Jimin and Jungkook enlisted together at the Army 5th Division Recruit Training Center in Yongkyon. Within the first 5 weeks of basic training, Jimin completed the program, placing first as the best trainee, received the Best Trainee Commendation Award directly from the division commander, and took the oath as the representative of all trainees in his unit. Not as an artist, not as an idol, as an ordinary soldier who turned out to be extraordinary. But that was just the beginning. During his service, Jimin went on to receive multiple prestigious military honors, including Best in CBRNE, which stands for Chemical, Biological, Radiological, Nuclear, and Explosives, a certification only awarded to soldiers who demonstrate the highest performance in handling dangerous situations. He also received the Commendation for Contribution during cold weather training, the Brave Army Award, and an early promotion ahead of schedule due to his exceptional military performance. And in June 2024, he was selected as a Special Class Warrior, a title that carries enormous respect within the Korean military corps. When news of these achievements spread, many Korean men who had previously been skeptical of idols serving in the military began to change their perspective. One husband of a fan was noted to have changed the way he referred to Jimin, going from calling him your favorite idol to simply saying his name, a small shift that carries enormous meaning in the context of Korean culture and the seriousness with which military service is regarded. And that happened not because Jimin tried to win anyone over, but because he simply did what he always does, which is give everything he has wherever he is. During his time in the military, Jimin also never forgot the people around him. There was a moment when he sent a message to Army from inside the military, not with the kind of words that feel written by a PR team, but with words that were honest, personal, and filled with longing. He talked about how having Jungkook by his side made the time easier. He talked about how he and the other members stayed connected through public phones. And on one night after being discharged, after having a little to drink and reading something he had written a while back, he shared it on Weverse with the most disarmingly honest words. "I have been drinking, and I was looking at something I wrote a while ago. Today, I kept thinking about how much I miss you. I was just talking about it with Nam Jun-hyung, just the two of us. We only just went our separate ways. The writing was not perfect in terms of grammar, but that is exactly what made it so real. And now we return to Tampa. We return to the moment where Jimin put his arm around that security guard at the edge of the stage. Imagine the position of that security guard. He came to work that night like any other night. His job was to maintain safety, make sure no one crossed the barricade, and stand in his designated spot for hours on end. Not to be part of the show, not to feel the kind of magic that the 60,000 people around him were feeling. He was simply there to do his job, and then a man named ParkJimin walked toward him, put his arm around his shoulder, and invited him to feel that moment together. One gesture, but one gesture that said to that guard, and to the entire world watching, that every person in that room matters. That no one is too small to be noticed. That a concert is not just about the star on the stage, but about every single person who makes it possible. That is Jimin. And this is not something he learned from a PR handbook. This is something that flows naturally from within him, because that is simply how he sees the world. There is a concept in Korean culture called nunchi, which roughly translates to the ability to read the room, to sense what another person needs or feels without them having to say it out loud. And Jimin possesses nunchi at a level that is remarkably rare, especially in someone who has every reason to be focused entirely on themselves. Throughout his career with BTS, Jimin has consistently been the member most often seen watching out for the people around him. He is the one who notices when a fellow member seems a little more tired than usual. He is the one who stands a little closer when someone seems nervous. He is the one who, in the middle of a performance involving hundreds of people and thousands of lights, can still spot one face in the crowd that seems to need acknowledgement. This is why fans call him the comfort idol. Not just because his music is soothing, though that is also true, but because his very presence carries something that cannot be logically explained. There is something about the way Jimin carries himself that makes people feel safe, feel accepted, feel that in a world that often feels cold and hard, there is still someone out there who genuinely cares. But here is something important we need to acknowledge. Being someone who constantly gives is not always easy. And Jimin has not been immune to his own struggles. There have been periods in his career where he was extremely hard on himself, where his perfectionist standards made him feel like he was never quite good enough. He has spoken openly about how even the smallest mistakes on stage made him feel deeply guilty. He has had to withdraw from certain performances due to painful injuries, not by choice, but because his body forced him to stop. And every single time, he came back with something that never changed, which was the desire to give his absolute best for the people who trusted him. That is one of the most deeply human things about Jimin. He is not a flawless figure without any cracks. He is someone who struggles, who doubts himself, who sometimes is not sure he is enough. But in the middle of all of that, he still consistently chooses to show up fully for others. And that is what makes him extraordinary, not because he never falls, but because every time he does, he rises in a way that brings him closer to the people around him rather than further away. There is a fascinating piece of data that emerged in July 2025, right after Jimin completed his military service. The Korea Business Research Institute released their monthly brand reputation rankings, and Jimin occupied the #1 position among all individual idols in South Korea. This was not because he had just released a new album, not because he was actively promoting anything. He had just gotten out of the military, but the emotional connection he had built with fans over years was so strong that even without a single piece of promotional content, his name remained the most talked about, with the words most frequently appearing around his name being kind heart, army, overwhelming, and comfort. That is not coincidence. That is the result of years of consistent character. And now he is back, with the Erarang album shaking up global music charts, with Swim reaching #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, with a world tour that sold out every single date within hours of going on sale. Jimin has returned to the world stage, carrying everything that has always made him extraordinary. Not just vocals that have grown richer, not just dance that has become more refined, but also a heart that has not changed, still as warm as the heart of the boy from Busan who first stepped under the spotlight back in 2013. In Tampa, when he put his arm around that security guard, when he vibed alongside his backup dancers, when he shared the video of the fan with the "My name is Jimin 2" t-shirt and simply wrote, "Love you," he was not trying to look good. He was not building an image. He was simply being himself. And the world, once again, was completely captivated. This is why the title Idol of Idols is not hyperbole. It is not exaggerated praise from fans who love too much. It is a recognition born from consistency. From small moments that were never planned but always created. From kindness shown not just to millions of fans across the globe, but to one security guard standing at the edge of the stage on a night in Tampa. Because that is the essence of an idol of idols. Not about who holds the most records. Not about who sits highest on the charts. But about who, when standing at the very top of the world, is still humble enough to look around, still warm enough to reach out, and still human enough to make every single person nearby feel like they matter. What makes Jimin's story even more remarkable is that none of it was manufactured. In an industry where image is everything and every move is calculated, Jimin is almost frustratingly genuine. Other artists have teams of people dedicated to crafting the perfect public persona. Jimin seems to have simply never needed that. Because what he shows the world is exactly who he is behind closed doors. The trainee who worked until midnight every night because he refused to be the weakest link. The soldier who showed up and outperformed every expectation. The donor who gave quietly for years before anyone even knew. The performer who remembers the name of the security guard who stood beside his stage. All of it is the same person. All of it is ParkJimin. And that, in a world full of performance and pretense, is the rarest thing of all. ParkJimin, from Busan, Idol of Idols. And this is only the beginning of the new chapter he is writing right now. If you have never paid attention to Jimin before, maybe now is the right time to start. Not because of his music, though that is genuinely worth your time, but because the world always needs more examples of how to be a good human being, and Jimin, without even trying, is one of the best examples we have right now. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and leave a comment below. Which Jimin moment hit you the hardest? Tell me in the comments. See you in the next one.